Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chelsea. Can you also confirm for me that you can see us and hear us? Welcome to the return of Goat's Eye View, where Helpful Goat Gaming talks to you about subjects and topics in games, the world generally, and our own lives. My name is Galway Trainer. I am the unbenevolent dictator of Helpful Goat Gaming, and tonight I am joined by my co-dictator, the benevolent dictator of Helpful Goat Games, Dr. Andrew Gilbert.
Hello.
And tonight we wanted to talk to you guys about a sort of relevant topic to the world right now of gaming in the time of COVID-19, with apologies to the estate of Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Um, if you don't get the reference in the name, go read the book Love in the Time of Cholera. It's very, very, very good. So we want to talk to you about gaming, what the effects of COVID-19 have been on in gaming, what we've found as we're sort of running a community built around gaming, and some of the impacts that we've seen around that, a lot of which are really, really positive and beneficial. Before we get started on our topic for tonight, which will probably go right around an hour, a little bit shorter than a normal Goat's Eye View, I wanted to cover just a couple of things. In the world right now, connection and community is really, really important, but some of the issues that we have are ways in which our society and our community have not served many of its members. If you want more information on this and more ways that you can help, ways that you can reach out, ways that you can make a difference, you can use either the !BLM command in chat to find resources which you can use to educate yourselves, find out more, find out ways you can do things, or the !donate command in chat, which no longer routes to our coffee page right now, but instead routes to resources to help with the cause of racial justice in America. And this is one of the ways that we try to use our platform, besides using our own resources, donating our time, participating in political movements, to try to call attention to the cause of racial justice in America and to demonstrate the unacceptability of extrajudicial killings of Black people in the country. So, strongly encourage you to check those links out if you don't have a lot of their resources. There are a lot of ways that you can contribute, just time, effort, etc., and even ways that you can do so that don't necessarily involve you to more risk from COVID-19 if you, like me, are immunocompromised. So check those out, please. We implore you. This is also, September is National Suicide Prevention Month and also awareness. This is a really, really topic, and it's one that dovetails really nicely with what we're talking about, because COVID-19 is a really disconnecting time. Like, I have seen Andy, who I would normally see just about every weekend or every other weekend, at least for some board games or just hanging out. I think I've seen you like twice in 6 months, at a distance of like 10 feet, when we absolutely had to like get something moved for Helpful Goat, and that's rough. I am not talking quieter. I am talking louder than normal, but my noise gate is apparently getting very aggressive. I will try to set this, and I will try to avoid cutting out too much. Let me know if I suddenly am just shouting into my mic. I'm probably shouting into my mic.
It's all good.
Besides all of these things, but one of the ways that we deal with that is connecting through gaming, and that's a huge, important topic for us personally. It's important for our management of our community. It's important for just getting to have time with this, and it's a topic that I should have also potentially in the introduction said Dr. Andrew Gilbert is currently addressing as part of game studies and just generally as part of your research. So if you want to give people a little bit intro into what we're going to talk about here tonight, that'd be great.
Yeah. Great. Excellent. And the doctor's always nice to hear. It's always fun. So yeah, the world is just kind of on fire right now, and everything is just kind of messed up. So we totally recognize that. And if you're joining us from CU, this is particularly impactful because of the timing. CU just went into 2-week quarantine for all its students to try to curb down the rapidly rising numbers of COVID-19 on campus. Um, because of all of these things, because it's hard to breathe the air because of the smoke, because of you can't be around people anymore without fear of contracting a very real, very terrible illness. Because of all so many other issues, even just socially, economically in our world right now, this is such a hard time. And what this can often do is lead us into isolation, um, which can be, like Owe mentioned, this is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. This can be an incredibly dangerous time for us humans. Um, we even for those of us, I don't I think I could speak for Galway, certainly myself. I'm generally an introvert, um who sort of enjoys very carefully placed being around people, but I'm very cautious about my time when around people. I'm just kind of generally an introvert. Still, even me is requiring connection, requiring other people to sort of be around and live around. And while there are some other ways to do this, I personally have a very deep passion for the ideas of games and gaming. And specifically around this topic, games are incredibly, incredibly important to that idea of connection. So what we want to kind of talk about tonight, you kind of asked me if I would specifically talk about how do you get together and play games in a global pandemic? How can you set up gaming groups? How can you set up specific kinds of games? So we're our experience, me and Galway, is a lot of uh, a lot of D&D, specifically Dungeons and Dragons, but we're going to talk about other kinds of games tonight, all kinds of things. But yeah, it's a very important topic because games are going to be a thing that connects us socially in a time when most things in this world are trying to kind of drive us apart.
Yeah.
So I'm going to find that really helpful and important, and hopefully we can give you some tips and tricks to do this on your own, to remain connected in a time of isolation in a lot of ways. Yeah,
Absolutely. I think one thing that you also touched on there that it's really interesting is that there's sort of two separate sets of challenges. The challenges that I think we've faced personally with Helpful Goat and with trying to figure out a lot of these things, we're taking an existing gaming group, existing connections, existing people, and translating that to online. As I said, you and I have played board games pretty regularly for a very long time with each other. And so largely what we've faced there is a challenge of how do we move that online. But then there's also the challenge of there are people in our community who have discussed like, oh, I love like watching you guys play D&D. I love listening to the podcasts. I'd like to play some D&D. I don't have a group of people who play D&D, and now how the hell do I find them? So I think that, there's sort of two interesting strands of conversation there.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And which one do we tackle first?
I think maybe the one that we tackle first is, to me, they have very similar approaches because we mostly have just resources. We have suggestions that we can make to people. I can also, on the back end of this, I should have thought of this. I just didn't have enough time today with work. Put together a list of just here are sort of links and resources that you could go to. But in terms of finding a group, finding people to play with, finding these resources, I would say that a lot of times it really does revolve around finding a sort of hub for these interests. One of the things that we've used extensively, that we've built a community around, is Discord. It's a free resource, and there's lots of them. Because it takes about 5 minutes to set up a server, there's lots of them for all kinds of groups, all kinds of interests, all kinds of focuses. If you're interested, you can use the !Discord command in chat, and it'll give you a link to our Discord. There's lots of them out there. I'm part of lots of really interesting ones where you can see lots of different debates, lots of groups, lots of looking for groups. So that would be one resource, I would certainly say, compared to like, this is no longer a time where we can go down to the friendly local neighborhood game shop. Be like, hey, who's running a game of D&D?
Remember the days when you could do that? That just seems so foreign right now.
I was gonna say there's and especially like, as I've mentioned, I'm immunocompromised, and so I'm really careful with this. And there are this whole set of things where I now think about like, oh, I used to just be like, oh, we don't have an ingredient for something for dinner. I'll just pop over to the store. Like,
Right.
not so much. And similarly, like, yeah, I used to love going into a friendly local game store and just browsing. Now it's like that thing outside. Bring it to me.
Yeah. I totally agree. Discord is a really fascinating invention that is allowing gamers to connect, almost specifically gamers. I'm sure there are other groups out there, but I am a part of no other group on Discord that isn't somehow game related. CU also has a very specific CU Gaming has a Discord with
Nice.
and it's huge. It's the CU Gaming club on campus is the largest club on campus now. It is filled with other peers at CU that enjoy gaming and that are really excited to see that. I don't have a link to that at the moment, but it's not hard to find online. They're very open with that community. So if you're looking for someone literally close to you to sort of center around, CU Gaming is a really interesting thing. And there is like Denver Gaming. There are sort of like big cities that sort of translate that in-person space to that digital space. And I think what Galway is kind of referring to as well is spaces in Discord built around fandom of a game in particular, or as I found, fandom even of a streamer that you like. I tend there's a streamer who streams a game called Sea of Thieves named Hitbo TC, who is just like a chill, cool dude who puts up with like no gamer talk. Like he's a generally a family friendly stream, so he makes sure everything is generally clean and generally just about the game, and I find that kind of refreshing.
Yeah.
His Discord is built off of very similar minded people who play that game. So that's a fascinating kind of avenue into Discord if you don't even know where to start, is maybe even start finding games or streamers that you like and seeing if they have a Discord, because probably they do.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say at this point, like if I go to a streamer's channel, the thing that I expect to see more than anything else, arguably at this point, even more than like a Twitter handle, is the link to join their Discord.
Yeah.
Because it's just almost everyone uses, almost all streamers use it for comms. They use it for arranging with their mods because Twitch is, not amazing if you're trying to talk to your mod about taking some action. And it's just really hard. You don't want to be sitting there on active voice, but it's really easy to do it there. So yeah, I think that that's a really good one. And one of the things that I would say at Helpful Goat we've cherished with this is that we've been able to build a community. There's a bunch of people in here that I have never met in person, but who can post things about like, oh, hey, this just happened. That's kind of upsetting, or I'm really excited about this. And it's really, really great to be able to have people be like, yeah, that sucks, or, I'm super excited for you, or, whatever, and just have that.
Yeah.
And also have people be able to say, oh, by the way, I want to go play some whatever game. I'm going to hop in voice. Anyone want to come hang out with me?
Yeah. Yeah, it's super easy to go from literally just sort of posting and chatting to diving into a game on Discord. They've made that functionality incredibly easy. So that is certainly something I would get a hold of. It's free. Just you download the app. It's easy to find groups to get into, and you are more than welcome, anyone in here, to come to the Helpful Goat Discord. We play all kinds of crazy games.
Mm-hmm.
Lena's been heading up a lot of Pokemon Go lately. We've been playing Fortnite and and Rocket League we're getting back into because that's going free to play,
Spell
and
break for me at least.
Spell Break. Yeah, and these are video games in particular, but also Discord has allowed us to really dive into online board games as
Yeah.
well, um, which is almost, which is honestly almost, if we're really talking about connection, I feel personally, and tell me if I'm wrong with you, Galway. I feel personally that, man, some online board games make me feel that connection again to other people, almost more than playing video games with my friends.
Yeah,
And I'm
I would certainly agree with that.
yeah,
I would say like in this period, the two things that have been most sustaining for me for that connection are the board games that we play and just the conversations that we have in Discord. Um,
right.
Video games are awesome, and I love playing them. Obviously, I spend a lot
Yeah,
of my free time gaming, but
it's good.
uh, a lot of the connection around that is mostly just come. It mostly just comes from being on voice with people and chatting. You
Yeah,
know, it's not the game itself. It's the, oh hey, yeah, how was your day? Let's talk about this. Oh, what's going on?
yeah, right. Because there's kind of a, yeah, there's that freedom of play that you get with something like an online board game that something like Fortnite or Rocket League kind of doesn't quite allow you to do, mostly because you are constantly doing something in those games. Everyone, you are making call outs, you're, passing the ball, you're
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
you're tagging things, equipment, you're constantly doing stuff so that when you do have a conversation, it's almost kind of distracting, or at least for me, who has a hard time focusing half the time.
yeah, 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 very much so.
But something like a, yeah, board game kind of allows us to sort of sit back and do our own thing and dive into talking and communicating while we're progressing and doing something together at the same time. And
Yeah,
that's a very awesome combo and something that is rarely found in other avenues of life other than games sometimes.
yeah, I 100% would agree with that. Um, I think that to that end, and I was gonna sort of transitioning. Like, I would recommend Discord. I would recommend downloading Discord if you don't already have it. And then just there's Discord server directories. You can just find streamers or games or communities like Spellbreak's subreddit and Spellbreak Wiki both link to that. Proletariat Games, the developer of them, has an official Discord. They link to branch Discords. You know, you can find communities that way. Uh, if you still use Facebook, Facebook still has a lot of gaming communities that you can get into, try to find stuff that way. That's all really good. Pivoting to sort of how you play the games themselves, I think you touched on something really critical. Computer games, not that much has changed. Um, we're past the era of LAN parties. I probably said this, and people from CU may not even know what that is. A little sad inside. I feel
Sure.
old. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine, Andy. Feel old.
Yeah, it is
But
okay.
so, you know, online gaming, it was already online. You already often had voice chat in it, so not a lot necessarily changed there. But board gaming is a much bigger challenge. So resources for that, I would say, are really varied. It depends on sort of what you're looking for. If you're interested in party games and sort of things like Werewolf, so social deception, Codenames, which is a lot of fun, and it's sort of a secret information passing game, things like that. Um, we oh, he thinks that that's sorry. Sam, I was just hovering my cursor there. I wasn't actually trying to show that as text. Um, uh, there are a variety of sites that have free versions up, and they're usually really quick, really simple to get in. You just sort of go in, say, I want to start a game with inviting my friends. You get a link, you shoot those out. And so that's something that we do in our Discord community a lot. Games like Codenames or Werewolf, or I know I just mentioned those. You were talking about Deception, I think, which have lots of good shouting at each other and lots of fun. And really beautifully, just the ability, like you were saying, to just sit and talk and kind of have just time with your friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you,
100%.
Lena, for dropping that in. Netgames.io is one of the main ones we use. It's got a ton of resources.
And it's all
Um,
free. Yeah, again, so there's very limited. Anyone could just go to the website. You don't have to sign up for anything with netgames.io. It's so easy to access for lots of people very quickly.
yeah.
Yeah.
If you're wanting to put in a little bit more of an investment, the other one that I would say, especially if you're someone who was very much a board gamer before COVID and now are straining to find those games, Tabletop Simulator on Steam is a really, really, really excellent resource. It's paid. It's a game on Steam. It's normally I think about like $20. It's not very much. And the way that that works is you download that game, and it's essentially just a physics engine, and like it has the concept of cards and tokens, and you can move things, and it has some of the mechanics that you would literally use to play the physics of a board game. But then you can download free, generally, some of them are paid, but free mods to just play a board game. So, for example, we're in the process of trying to set up a game for Betrayal at House on the Hill. A very well thought of, very standard sort of boxed board game that we would play a lot at my house. And it's free. So if you buy that, everybody you play with has to have a copy of the game, but you don't have to pay for the board games then. That's kind of the advantage. Again, with Discord, you can just share video. You can all be on comms. So that works really, really well. Any other resources you were thinking of, Andy? Or sort of the general?
Right, those are good ones. Jackbox is another one that has a fairly limited but pretty low bar for a lot of people to jump in on. Jackbox games have different party packs that have like 5 or 6 different games in them, and only one person needs to buy them in order to actually run the game. And then everyone else who joins the game, up to like 8, I think a couple games have up to like 16 people,
Mm-hmm.
um, are totally free. Just happen on your phone, your tablet, or your computer, just wherever you have an internet connection. Super easy to do that, and probably at this point, those have been around for a while. So your gaming group, probably someone in there already has a Jackbox game on Steam that they can just run. Super easy, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Just party games to just kind of kill time and hang out with your friends again.
They kind of
That's a good
straddle
one.
that line between like a video game and a board game because they're often
Yeah,
based on a board
sure.
game mechanic, but they only exist in a digital version. But
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And again, one of the biggest, the other thing I would say about that is, depending on if you're very game oriented, when we talk about party games as a board gaming term, that would normally mean it takes a large number of players. I would say 5 is the lower level before I would call something a party game, up to 16
Sure.
a lot. They normally have simpler mechanics. Like this is not a game, and they normally take less time. They're shorter. This is not a game of Risk. You're not sitting down for the next 3 days.
Right.
This is not D&D where there's a lot of mechanics and rules and you kind of need to process this. They're normally pretty simple. They've got one main mechanic, maybe a couple of teams, maybe cooperative. So that's what we mean by party games. They're much more pick up and play. Someone, either the game itself can explain itself to you pretty quickly, or someone who's played it before can explain it very quickly, and it can accommodate more people. And I would say that, yeah, Jackbox is outstanding for that and for having a lot of variety in the party packs. So, like,
Mhm.
netgames.io, I would say, is a little bit focused on word games and social deception games, which makes sense. Those are two pretty big categories of party games, and they're also really easy ones to code. But Jackbox has, like, there's a lot of games where you draw, for example, and like to just sketch something out on your tablet, or you're going for wordplay, or so that's another great resource. Agree?
Yeah. So then maybe we talk about where we have sort of personally probably excelled, and something you've just mentioned. Maybe that's Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah,
Um, because I out of all the games, and gaming itself is a category in which not being isolated and being connected can be really, really helpful for you socially, especially during a time of a global pandemic. Out of all of those, role playing games are absolutely amazing conduits of not just fun, not just progress with your friends, but um, sometimes just like therapy. There's it's sometimes so hilarious and fun that you talk about it for days. It's so connecting.
Yeah.
These and the main one that is honestly the most it's maybe not the best out there, but is the most prevalent, and that probably the access to it has gotten a lot easier over the last few months, has been Dungeons and Dragons. um their newest edition, fifth edition, has come out. It come out a while ago, but it is it is not only, the basic rules are not only free for you to download and pick up a game very very quickly, but they've also streamlined the rules, and so they are a lot less daunting of a task to sort of undertake. Um, so yeah, so Dungeons and Dragons becomes a really kind of important element here. We've certainly been playing Dungeons and Dragons online for a while. Partly because, honestly, mostly because one of our players, it lives out of state, and online was kind of the only way for all of us to connect at the same time. Um, but I'm so happy we sort of did, because we had such a foundation in place for when COVID hit, and we all had to stay home and we couldn't get next to each other. We were all very well acquainted with an online sort of system.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so let's talk about some free access to role playing games and Dungeons and Dragons specifically. Um, you can, maybe Strange Words or Sam in chat could just put a link to like the rule, the basic rules download for Dungeons and Dragons, maybe, if they're awesome. I love you guys. Thank you. While we're talking. But you can just download this for free. It's the basic rules. You really honestly kind of only need one person to really understand the rules, who can then sort of guide the rest of a group through what's going on. Um and beyond that, it's, oh, thanks, Penguin, yeah. And then beyond that,
I have a tab I can still use.
you're brilliant. Uh Beyond that, you sort of just tell a story with your friends. Um, and there are some rules and mechanics that determine how that story sort of unfolds. But for the most part, your motivations and your intentions are entirely your own.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the basics of sort of role playing games in general.
We have a couple of good resources
Um,
on our YouTube as well. Rachel, our friend Rachel, did a thing on
100%, yeah.
DMing for kids, which isn't limited to
Yeah.
just that. That's a really good breakdown of here's easy, simple ways to get people into playing it and how to start DMing. And we've also had a couple of DM sort of tips and trick DMGM tips and tricks videos where we talk about, oh, here's some of the things that you should know. Here's some advice that I wish I'd had before I started doing this, to just sort of help streamline that process.
Yeah. 100%. So we use Dungeons and Dragons rule set, and we play on a virtual tabletop called Roll20. And Roll20 is free, um, and it's the reason we use it is for kind of several reasons, because there are several different kinds out there. I think Fantasy Grounds is another
Yep.
possible online tabletop simulator kind of free-ish thing. Um, but we use Roll20 for lots of different reasons, and it's a totally fine thing that is kind of built for Dungeons and Dragons, for you to have virtual character sheets, for you to have icons on a map that can move around on that map. It even has interesting sort of dynamic lighting situations, where whoever sets up the game can have specific maps that mean that you can't like see around a corner until your little character moves up to that corner. It's quite enjoyable. It's quite fascinating, actually. Um, and uh, and we use Roll20, and it's been really nice, and it's been
Yeah.
really fun. And there's not a it's pretty easy to kind of learn.
Mhm.
There's very little.
There's a little bit of
There's not a
learning.
high bar
There's a little
to
bit of
get in.
learning on the system, like there is with almost any
Right.
application interface. You've got to learn a little bit of Roll20, and you'll also need to learn a little bit of D&D. But I will say that some of the things of learning Roll20 actually lessens some of the learning D&D because it does a lot of the math for you. It you can
Yeah.
drag and drop some stuff. In terms of online portals, and there was just one other I wanted to mention real fast. If you are on Discord, there is also AvreBot, Avre.io, which is a bot that's essentially designed for playing D&D on Discord. It's not going to put up lots of images and lots of maps, but it does allow you to fundamentally play what is a text-based adventure. You can sit and talk with your friends. It keeps your character sheets, etc. And it also connects to a site. Let me wait quickly. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
There's so many links. dndbeyond.com. dndbeyond.com is free-ish. This is sort of the official companion app to Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. It was originally independently developed, then it got taken over, and then through a partnership, then it got taken over. But it's a very good resource. You can also keep a character sheet in there, and AvreBot will plug into that. So it can like keep everything in a web interface, which I've had a number of people tell me like, oh yeah, we just use Avre. It's easier. And they've been doing a lot of developing on D&D Beyond since COVID came out, of encounter building, etc.
Yeah. Which, and honestly, for someone who sets up a lot of those games as the dungeon master or the game master, the person who kind of runs the game or sets up the scenario for the game, having those online interfaces has been really, really helpful. We literally ran a role playing game last night, where I think I had an hour to prepare the game, and it was pretty easy and pretty flawless, as if I had
Mm-hmm.
hours and hours and hours to do it. Um, it's once you kind of know what you're doing, it can be very quick, and it's again pretty easy to get people into it that way.
And that's something that actually you segued me very nicely. D&D 5e, as we've been talking about, is I'm not going to say best or worst. It is certainly the most popular. I would say it is also
Yeah.
very well done as being an accessible and very, I don't quite mean the word generic, very centered role playing system. It doesn't necessarily excel in any particular element, but it's good all around, and it touches a
Yeah.
lot of the bases. So it's pretty easy, though I will say, and the basic rules, and like if you can purchase it on D&D Beyond for a digital version, or you can order it from Amazon or something, Barnes and Noble. What is it? There's the starter kit, and then they have some new name where they didn't call the starters kit because it's technically a different kit. But both of those have prepackaged adventures, pre-written characters. They're designed to make it easier to pick up and play for a group. So those are some great resources, and it's pretty easy to get people in very quickly, I would say.
Yeah.
There is also an enormous world of role-playing games, and the one you were referencing, and sorry, that's where the segue is coming in.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful writer of tabletop RPGs called Grant Howitt. There's a link to his itch.io page that you can pay what you want for them. That's one page for a complete game. It's usually designed to be one session. It's what we played. We played Trashkin. I was an outrageously French cigarette smoking pigeon. They're very easy. Everything that you need to know is on there, as long as you're aware of sort of what dice are and you have a dice roller. So Andy, you would point out within an hour we were up and running, and we absolutely were, and it was great because we had the map and we could do some stuff on Roll20. But like at minimum, I'm not sure if anyone knows this, but you can tell Google like roll 2d20. It will just roll dice for you. It has a dice roller in it. You could literally run most Grant Howitt games with that, with just 5 people and Chrome. Because at most it's like, oh, roll a d10, roll a d6, that's it. The rest of the rules are all on a single sheet of paper. They're really easy to pick up and play, and they're super fun.
Yeah. 100%. We've done 3 or 4 of them, I think, now
Big
in
Gay
Hopeful Good.
Orcs,
Yeah,
Dead
Big Gay
Channel.
Orcs is a really oh my god. You can go to YouTube and find our playthrough of Big Gay Orcs,
And
when Adam Lover ran it. It's brilliant and fascinating and fun, and we just had a good time with it. Um,
Dead
we've
Channel, at least
played
did last
Dead Channel.
Halloween.
Have we done Honey Heist? I
I
know we've
believe so.
played it off stream.
I think we played it on stream as well, but I don't
Did we
remember.
play on stream? Awesome. And then Trashkins last night.
Trash
Yeah.
Can.
And they're all brilliant and fun and easy, very easy to pick up. Um, and again, it's introducing you into that world of role playing games, which are it innately tied to the spirit of narrative, which is not to go too much into game studies. Uh, Narrative and games have gone together since the very beginning of separating humanity from the animals. It's just they've both always kind of been around. The idea of play, according to Freud, is what leads to narrative. In particular, it's yeah, this connection that can be gotten by goofing around and producing a story with your friends is so helpful, so important right now, especially that we thoroughly suggest jumping into some of this. You will not be sorry.
Yeah.
It sounds, don't get me wrong, I know it sounds childish in a way, I know it sounds dorky. These are all true things. but 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 damn it, don't you just need a little bit more dorky in your life right now? Wouldn't you trade most of the world being on fire for just kind of being a bit of a nerd for a couple hours with your friends? Um,
And I
the
think
answer
that
should be yes.
the answer should be yes. But I think that one of the other things that stands out to me, and when we talk about them, is that a lot of people,
Yeah.
and let's be clear, if you're listening to us right now, you're on Twitch, you know what a game is. The biggest thing that I would say with RPGs, especially in a moment like this versus computer games, is the fact that one, you are inherently telling a story with people. The game master, it's not the game master's novel. That is a trope
Right.
of the novelist GM. And it's like, no, this is an interactive story. A lot of times, just say yes. Oh, your players want to do that. Sure, figure out a way to make that happen. Or your DM says, would you like to go over here? Yeah, sure. I mean, he may be trying to kill you, and he's probably trying to kill you. Just as a note.
Probably.
But it's a very collaborative thing, which is inherently more connecting. And the other thing that I think is really, really valuable in this really, honestly, to be fair to a lot of people, really traumatic time, and
100%.
this very restraining time, is that this is not a video game where there are very defined limits. There's the invisible wall. There's the skybox. There's the if I tell Andy in D&D and I get access to the spell, I'm like, I'm flying up. I'm just flying up. I'm not going to bounce on a skybox. There may be consequences if I hit space, but I can do that. I mean, and you talk about it sounds it does sound dorky, and it is, and it's nerdy, but at the same
100%.
time, I go back to like one of the campaigns we played and that we streamed of Water Heist, and playing this little 2-foot tall, permanently drunk lizard man who was a monk, and having this chase scene where the dice were just constantly frustrating me on a thing that I was supposed to be good at. And getting to the end of this, and you're describing this person is basically getting away because they had done very well. The person we were chasing, this is a D&D 5e thing. Monks have an ability called Featherfall. And I'm like, I jump off the building, and you're like, oh, yeah. So just give me an acrobatics check, one of the skills to like make sure how you climb down. I'm like, you misunderstand. I'm walking off the edge. Like, and that was just a thing because I knew I wasn't going to get hurt. I just plop and followed them. And I don't think you'd expected me to do that up until you said to me, oh, they're going down, and it's like a 3-story building. I hadn't expected me to do that. but it was a thing I could do. I also could have said I stop and climb down very carefully, or I pop in through a window, or it's not like oh, here's your path. And there's something really, really powerful, I feel like, about that when the world is so constraining right now.
Right, 100%. Yeah. And like Strangely Word is pointing out in chat, yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being dorky or nerdy. This just means where you're passionate about something that is honestly less than mainstream. Dungeons and Dragons will not be less than mainstream for long. This hobby of ours has shot up and gone mainstream pretty quickly. Because so many people are passionate about it, and because anytime you try it, I've never honestly, Galway, have you ever heard of someone trying D&D and just saying, nope, I hate it. I don't want anything to do with it. I've heard people go like, oh, interesting. I don't know if this is for me. But most of the time, it's completely the opposite. It's, oh, this is now my new obsession. This is one of the greatest things ever.
I think the only time that I've heard that in just not even personal relevance, but sort of online, it almost always goes back to a problem with someone in the group. It's not the game itself.
Right, not the game itself. Right,
Which actually also really speaks to the connectedness of D&D versus a computer game. I've played a lot of Overwatch. There were a lot of assholes on Overwatch. I still played Overwatch. I love D&D. I cannot imagine continuing to play D&D with a group of people that I didn't enjoy playing it with. It's too 100%. Important. As much time as I devote to this game, as much as I love the game, as much joy as it brings me, it would not bring me joy if it wasn't good.
100%. 100%. Yeah. 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 Cool. Have we answered some questions from Discord? And anyone who has questions in chat, always feel free to shout at us. We're doing it live, reading chat right now. So feel free.
We'll skip to one that Sam had posted in Discord. By the way, I just want to reach out to members of our Discord community. Had posted questions. They were really, really good questions. It's just going to be a little bit shorter of an episode tonight, so we're probably not going to get to all of them. And a lot of them were around a certain type of accessibility that I want to do as its own episode and let it breathe, not just in this sort of context of COVID-19. So that'll be coming. Really appreciate them. So Sam in Discord had asked us, the year is 2022, the third year of lockdown. Why do you put this evil on us? What does the world of tabletop gaming look like?
That's it. Yeah, I was absolutely thinking about this as soon as I read that question. If we're still fighting this, if we're still in lockdown, I think here's what I would imagine. I think the production of new and fascinating board games will slow. However, the discovery or rediscovery of like great board games that are now being transferred to online spaces, I think will boom at the same time.
Yeah.
Just because we're not in a great space for being extremely creative and being very efficient production wise. And we've already seen a big slowdown in board game production. And
for those who aren't aware, that's already a huge problem in board games.
Yeah, super. And it was already a little bit of a problem even before COVID. We were starting to kind of slow down a couple things anyway, because it was becoming kind of mainstream, and the hobby board game industry was starting to suffer a little bit. All industry stuff we don't super have to get into right now, but I think stuff like Tabletop Simulator and Roll20 are going to be commonplace things. I would be shocked if more and more and more and more people don't jump on this board game bandwagon, so that a Discord account is as likely as a Facebook account at that point. Yeah. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I think that the other thing that we'll see with that is around a lot of board games. I agree, the virtualization is going to proceed and increase. But I think that the other thing that we'll probably see is a distinct increase in the amount of supporting and connecting frameworks. So you kind of alluded to that with Roll20. As someone who actually works in business analysis, follow the money. Wizards of the Coast is throwing a lot of money at D&D Beyond. They're making everything accessible there. They are making things accessible so that, a D&D book is often about yay thick. You have no context. I might be absolutely tiny. I might be saying this is 3 pages thick. It's not. It's a fairly thick book. It's also a fairly pricey book. On D&D Beyond, they've really tried to take advantage of the electronic medium to say, oh, do you want to just buy the spells that were in this book? Or do you want to just buy the story campaign? Or do you want to just buy the creatures that we added? So that you can sort of have a setup that you want. For example, we talk about D&D becoming increasingly mainstream. Critical Role. Let's just all nod at Matt Mercer and his incredible gang of players.
100%.
Recently released an officially published book through D&D, Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. It was a campaign setting. I have tremendous appreciation for Matt Mercer and for his craft and all of that, and for Critical Role. I just went on D&D Beyond and bought the spells because I wanted new spells, but like I didn't need a campaign setting. I've built my own. I've built several of my own, and so that wasn't. It isn't even that I didn't want it. That's not a thing that I have time to absorb. I'm not going to be like, hey guys, want to run another campaign? My calendar already looks very bad. So, that was great. And the fact that there's now more and more and more resources, that's where I think you're going to see more and more of these development efforts, is around not just turning a board game into an electronic experience, but even for an existing game, how do we better support it? How do we make it something that's more enjoyable online? Because one of the things that they put in is book sharing. A fundamental principle of D&D is you need some amount of people to own the books, but they're physical things. And if you're playing together, great. Andy owns these 3, I own these 2, Lena owns this other one. Okay, we have all those books at the table while we're playing. Can't really do that online. More and more systems are going to, you can. Roll20 has that. If your game master has the book, you can share it around. D&D Beyond has that now. So I think that that'll be the big direction. I also think that you'll see more and more games developed with an eye to that. So one of the things that I wonder is right now with gaming in the board game space, and I say this as if I'm not in the board game space, but I think that right now a lot of creators are probably looking at the challenges of production and all of that and going, how can I just start with this online? How can I just cut this right over to being electronic?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I think that'll be the other big trend that I would see.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I kind of want to touch on the question that Chelsea asked. I'd love to hear stories or examples of moments where D&D has helped spread positivity and happiness in your lives during this pandemic. And I don't think that for me, I'm going to limit it to D&D, but just tabletop RPGs generally.
Sure.
Andy, what do you got?
Right. So for some reason, my own personal family that is spread out over several states, was having a really hard time kind of connecting. And we'd get on Zoom chat or something and talk to each other for a little bit. But that's not necessarily what my family has always done when we've gotten together, is just sit and look at each other and talk. I'm from Indiana originally, and just talking about stuff wasn't exactly always what we like to do. So we started to kind of maybe play a few Jackbox games, and then I just introduced my family to netgames.io just recently, and it's allowed us to sort of connect in a different way than just sort of catching up how right now is honestly what a lot of our conversations devolved into, is just like, well, what's shitty for you right now? But having that sort of, having a structure to a progression that you can all work on together, even if it's sort of against each other in something like a competitive game, or if it's a shared co-op game, there's a structure to your progression that uh, eases something for me and my family personally. And we've now made a scheduled game time every month, where we make sure all of us together sit down, play some of these games, and just talk and hang out again. And honestly, it feels exactly like it used to. It gives me a sense of normalcy in a really crazy time. That has been super nice. Um, and then for my friend family group, uh, I see Galway, I see Lena, Adam, Sam, all the people that play in Bounty Buddies. Like, I'm seeing all of my friends, and we're getting together and again doing this structured progression together. And it's really personally helped me not just not be bored, but feel like I'm again a part of something else, a part of something bigger than just sort of me and my spouse and my dog,
Yeah.
who just sort of would sit around watching Tiger King again or something. If we
Oh, Jesus. I'd
left to our
almost forgotten
devices.
about Tiger King.
I
Oh,
know. Remember how long ago that feels?
2020 has been a
Tiger King.
long, weird ass year. Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
So that's all been incredibly helpful and deeply positive for me, certainly.
I think I think that there are sort of similarly for me two answers. One is maybe more directly tied to the game, and then the other is a little bit tangentially tied. For again, where this moments or examples where it's helped spread positivity and happiness in my life during this pandemic. Um, One of the things that I've talked about on Goat's Eye Views, and we've done generally, is this mechanic of when we get done with a session. So there's normally one person running the game and several players, usually between 3 and 5. Um, and it's a persistent story normally for us. We do play some one shots, but it's normally, you're spending weeks doing this. We have been playing Goats and Dragons: The Fates of Rin for a couple of years now, pretty regularly, basically weekly. We've had some breaks in there, but
Yeah.
weekly or every other week for a long time. Like, we're very invested in that. But is adding, at some point I saw online and added to some of my games, and then it spread to other games. At the end of this session, where you've just beaten a monster or just found something out or just played for several hours with your friends, going around the table, the virtual table, going around the call and saying, what's something you did tonight that you're proud of? And getting to have that moment with everyone is immensely validating, and is one of my favorite things to both take part in and to watch, because watching it go around the tables that I run when I'm game mastering, it's really beautiful to watch players pick each other up, right? And that's a huge part of this, like positivity, uplifting, making life a little bit better, and being like, as soon as someone says, oh, well, I guess my favorite thing is this thing that I did, and just instantly 5 people going, oh, that was amazing. Yeah, that was so good. And the other thing that you did that I loved, and just watching that is tremendously affirming to me. And I would say it's also tremendously affirming of a belief in community and a sort of just support of people to other people. And it nicely encapsulates that element of the game, which is always there. It's there throughout the entire play session, but it sort of nicely also distills it down at the end. So I've loved that. I've loved every one we've done of those.
Yeah.
And the thing that I think, which is very fitting for this gaming in the time of COVID, and it's more tangentially related, is the community that we have. That I look at this string of names that is appearing over here in Twitch chat. And there's a lot of love and there's a lot of support and there's a lot of shared memories. As anyone who's watched Ghost Eye View before, I'm trained as a sociologist. That's community. A set of goals and standards and shared memories and stories. That's how we build this. And that's what we have. References and sharing and like, right now people being like, oh, well, sadly my family isn't the gaming type. They're the just sitting staring at each other type, or they're the sitting staring and talking type, or the this type. But knowing that there's someone on the other side of that to catch you, and knowing that you can just talk about the fact that life might suck right now, or life might be awesome. Something happy happened. We often talk about support and connection as just being when the bad thing happens, who sort of catches you. But it's also amazing to have a community of people who will say, oh, an awesome thing happened to you. I'm genuinely incredibly excited for you. And I wouldn't really have this community without D&D. Like we've met a lot of these people who came in because we play this game online and have some modicum of skill at it. And we've attracted really amazing people. And like that our community, I would say, more than anything else, has gotten me through COVID-19 and the stress of all of that.
Yeah.
Like more than anything else.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. As we're probably trying to then kind of wrap some up, if this is something you want to get involved with, it may seem a tiny bit scary at first, but the rewards for making that step into something like role-playing games or board games or video games with your friends, just trying something slightly new to connect through gaming, I so please encourage you to do that. It's worth so much more than the effort it takes to just take those first couple steps.
Yeah.
Like honestly, the gaming community has gotten kind of a bad reputation sometimes for not being super welcoming, for not being that caring of LGBTQIA ideas. But there are communities out there where you can fit in. Ours is certainly one of those that breaks the mold of of that sort of typical sort of gamer community sometimes. But you can always find groups. You can always find people. There's going to be people that love this hobby enough where making those steps is something you absolutely can do. And if your friends are wary to jump into something like this, but want to give it a try sometime, anytime you need help trying to run a game, or if you need a little extra help with some ideas, there are plenty of people out there that love to give those kinds of ideas. You can jump in a Discord, ask some questions. Galway has been doing these Goat's Eye View for a while now, so there's several up on YouTube that you can find that very specifically go into great depth about how do you build an encounter, how do you run a game, how do you elicit communication among your players. Some really amazing, really helpful things to do if this is something you want to do. There's lots of opportunity for you. And something that Galway had mentioned before, Critical Role. There are lots of games that are out there that you can watch or listen to and find examples of. Critical Role is an amazing game with great players who do this. I humbly suggest our own game, Goats and Dragons, on anywhere you find podcasts, as well as Helpful Goat Gaming Presents. We run a lot of role-playing games, not just D&D, but a lot of different one-shots. Again, like I said, you can listen to us, you can listen to them. Try to make that step if you can. It's super important, especially now, and you're going to enjoy it. You're gonna like the way you look, I guarantee.
Okay.
No.
We just took a left turn. And one thing I wanted to say, vis-a-vis that finding community, I can proudly recommend our own. It is a thing that we have a lot of people in many of whom are the awesome people you're seeing in chat right now,
Yeah.
who try to make it a place that you can talk and you can be who you are, and that is safe and good and appreciated. I will also say that Twitter can be a bad, scary place. Twitter usually is a bad, scary place. But if you look at D&D Twitter, you're gonna find the two sides of this line. And I do want to emphasize that absolutely there is still the sort of good old boy version of this gaming of why the hell would I want to have representation? Why would I want to have inclusivity? Why would I want to have accessibility? But finding those people and finding the people who are yelling at them can be your quickest way of finding people that you can ask for advice, that you can ask for help with these things. It is not ever lost on me that I am a white cis man. And so I don't have access in my identities to some of these issues. And I found it tremendously helpful to just go online and read through someone's backlogs who has spent the time and taken the effort to explain why representing someone with a physical disability in a certain way is important, why this way is harmful, why this way is valuable, how you approach challenges that literally the players might have, physical accessibility, physical disability, hearing loss, being hard of hearing, these types of things where I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I haven't gotten to experience this. So if those are concerns for you and you want to try to find that community, I super recommend actually delving into the cesspool that is D&D Twitter and find the good ones. Find the ones who are saying the things that you want, because I'm going to go ahead and lay a claim to you. Like, we follow each other and like we block the people that have the really shitty opinions, and it can get you to, I've had offers of help that, you know, have this like, yeah, here, if you want resources for this, I have a whole list built. Off you go. And, you know, that's great. That's really, really awesome. So that would be the other piece of advice I would have for you, sort of in closing for this. If you're looking for that, and if that is a concern, 100% get it. And to not just offer ourselves, but that's another way you can find more. Also, adding to the list of people that you should go listen to or watch for D&D/tabletop RPG, go follow Critical Bard on Twitch. He is a Black D&D streamer who is doing amazing, very draining work of talking about race and D&D and just race in America. Not great. And honestly deserves all the love and support in the world.
100%. Yeah. There is a community out there for you. That's the cool thing about sort of the nerd geek community, is you can find like-minded people. You are not alone in this world.
No.
And the quicker you can sort of realize that, the happier, honestly, you can be. You can find good people, and people that you can hang out with and share stories with, and games, and just, you know, dive back into life a little bit. I know this is a super scary time, and isolation is kind of a default setting sometimes for us. But if you can, try to make some of those steps. I know it's hard. But it's super worth it if you can. Super worth it.
Yeah. I also super recommend, if you're wanting to get started, if you're wanting to dive into that, especially if you have any trepidation around that, checking out, I think it's the last two Goat's Eye videos, Goat's Eye View videos before this one. You can check them out over on our YouTube, which were around DMing, GMing tips and just communication at the table. Because honestly, a huge part of all of this, of being safe, of being okay, is having those communications right beforehand. Because if you're a person who is afraid that, you know, that some part of your identity or one of your identities may be not treated very nicely, have a conversation around that. And if they're not willing to have the conversation, that's a red flag. If that conversation goes badly, that's a red flag. So spare yourself that pain of actually playing in the game by having the conversation first. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to be easy. I'm not saying it's going to be fun, but it's going to be a lot better than when something really shitty or traumatic happens in game. And that's just a really good way of also sort of protecting yourself, because you deserve that. You deserve to protect yourself. You deserve to be safe and okay. That's why we play games. I know that I'm, not to speak too much for Andy, but I know that that's why we play games. We play games to have joy and connected with people we love and for them to feel joy. If we're not serving that, that's bad.
And one last little recommendation for if you're new, especially to Dungeons and Dragons, if you're new to taking a leap into kind of this nerddom, which is amazing. We played a game over the summer that lasted 15 episodes or something like that with Dominic Monaghan from Lost and Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. He was entirely new to the game. He took a giant leap in playing with these kind of random people over the summer. And he's kind of nervous during the first couple of games of this, and it's adorable. But was incredibly vocal about, I don't know what I'm doing. Except he said, I don't know what I'm doing, guys. Sorry, bad Dom impression. But he's a great example of someone that just kind of took that leap into this game of nerddom, learned how the game works, and then was fucking a brilliant player just after a few sessions of this. He's a really great example of just someone diving into what this is. And that's you can find that in the Goats and Dragons stream under Dom and Dragons.
And in the podcast.
And I think the podcast.
This is not an attempt to have last word, but the other thing that I was going to say that's really good about D&D and about role-playing games generally for trying to jump in and make that jump, because it can be scary. Like, I remember the first time I played, it was scary. Am I going to fuck up? Oh God, what's going on? Am I going to screw something up? But the piece of advice that I always give to my new players, even if they're not necessarily new to D&D, is just tell me what you want to do. I can literally, if you know what the numbers, not the numbers, but like if you know how to do mental arithmetic, I can get you through a session of D&D just fine.
Yeah.
Because I'll help you set up your character sheet. I'll tell you where to look for it, and you just need to add the D20 to that. And I'm going to tell you when to look for that. Just tell me what you want to do, and I'll tell you what that means. So, it's, and he, to follow up on that, because he embraced that. Like, I see very few players doing it. Like, I want to do this. How do I do it? I am not going to attempt to do a Dom impression. And we're just like, oh, you roll that. And he was like, okay, cool. That's it. Cool. That's all I needed to do. Awesome. I'll do that. That's one of the best parts to me of role-playing games, is if you have a table, especially that understands that people are new. It's really easy as an experienced player to be really supportive of new players in D&D.
Yeah, 100%.
Anything else?
I think it's all I got, man.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for talking with me about this. And
thanks so much for being on. We to speak to just one last little plug for what we do here. We are a game design and game content community. We have a Discord, which we've mentioned several times, provided a link for several times. We stream here on twitch.tv/helpfulgoat every week. Normally on Tuesdays, we are doing playtesting of our home developed RPG, Adventures in the Void. Wednesdays, we'll probably be shifting back to Goat's Eye Views. I'm in the process of moving, a thing which I also have immense gratitude, and I'm actually going to post in the community once I'm actually done with this. I do not think I would have gotten through this process without our community, because it has been hellacious. But we'll probably get those back onto Wednesdays. On Thursday, our good friend Elise runs Spire, which is an amazing game that's very creepy. Rachel plays a cannibal with a hyena. You get hyena facts. One of the players is turning into a bug. It's fine. It's good. It's fine. It's good stuff. Absolutely. It's amazing stuff, but it's just scary as hell sometimes. And on Fridays, we alternate between playing either Goats and Dragons, The Fates of Rin, normally is the Goats and Dragons campaign, which is level 1 to level 20. We've been playing it for a couple of years. Or
Cool.
we are doing sort of usually a tier campaign, which I DM. Andy DM's the Fates of Rin one. Right now we're playing a tier Moontree Isle, and that'll be coming up this Friday. We encourage you to come check those out. We encourage you to hang out and chat, talk to us. We are all usually very, very friendly. I know there's nothing wrong with eating people, Rachel. And yes, thank you, Chelsea. Sweet pea, gotta eat people. But come check us out.
And
Check out our.
there is something wrong with eating people. Please don't stop it.
Mm, mm,
Stop it.
mm. I'm gonna give him a pass on that one. But come check us out. We're streaming on here a lot. You can check out our YouTube or the podcast if those are the forms that you prefer to get your entertainment in. But yeah, from everyone at Helpful Goat, Andy, thank you so much for popping on, sharing your perspective with us, talking about gaming in the time of COVID. Thank you to everyone in the chat for listening, participating. Love you all so much. We will be back tomorrow. I assume. I haven't heard from Elise that anything's up with that. So tomorrow for Spire. So thank you all so much. As always, we love you. Thank you for listening. Be safe. Be well. Take care of yourselves and each other.
Hang in there, everyone.
Get to slobs.